Okay, so where am I today? Right, well, I'm at a place called Salford Junction, where the Birmingham and Fazeley Canal meets the Tame Valley Canal, and it also meets the Birmingham and Warwick Junction Canal. It was a really quite a complicated canal, quite a complicated junction in its day. It was really busy, and I'm going to make my way through that junction and onto another canal. So actually, if you're wondering what all the noise is in the background, well, in 1972 the M6 came through here and they built Gravelly Hill Interchange, also known as Spaghetti Junction. And it's up there. Let's get on the water. Morning. So in 1839 this was a really busy piece of canal, and to the point where this canal here went into the centre of Birmingham and joined up with the Grand Union Canal, and this here is the Birmingham and Fazeley Canal, and this went all the way through eventually to right to the centre of Birmingham to Gas Street Basin. Now everything really coming into Birmingham from the north and from the east, and actually from the south really, came down here, joined onto the Birmingham and Fazeley, straight down into Gas Street Basin, and it was really busy. It got so congested that in the end the Birmingham Canal Navigations Company decided they needed to build something to go around the outside, because not everything needed to go straight into the centre of Birmingham. So they came up with the idea of the Tame Valley, and the Tame Valley Canal was designed in 1839, work started in 1841, and in 1844 it was finished. Now anything that came from outside Birmingham came from another company, and anything coming from another company going on to Birmingham Canal Navigations, the BCN network, had to pay tolls. That's what this little island here is for. This was a toll island. This is where anything coming in off the Birmingham and Fazeley and anything coming up from the Grand Union Canal, they had to pay a toll to come on. They built the canal, like I say, in 1844, which was really late actually for canals. Canal mania really kicked off in 1790. So by 1844, most of the main canals had already been built. Consequently, by the time they got to this canal, it was really quite, they really knew what they were doing, and it was really quite technologically advanced. So like I said, in 1972 they built Gravelly Hill Interchange, Spaghetti Junction, right over the top of this junction, and as it happens it's one of the busiest, one of the most congested motorway interchanges in the country, sitting over the top of what used to be one of the busiest, most congested interchanges and junctions on the canal network. It's interesting that when they put this up, they were putting columns in the water. They clearly weren't that interested in canals at the time. I guess they decided they were the technology of yesteryear. Now, as I said, I'm going to be following the Tame Canal, the Tame Valley Canal. Obviously that loosely follows the Tame River, and incidentally the Tame River's just over there. Now this paddle or sluice, they can wind that up just to release some water into the Tame River if they need to. You find that quite a lot where a canal crosses a river or comes very close to a river. Sometimes there's an interaction between the two. When I came in this morning, I came in across here on the train out of Birmingham New Street through to Gravelly Hill Station. Quite a good service actually. Now I just want to stop here out of respect more than anything. This stone commemorates a policeman who was stabbed to death right here. Detective Constable Michael Swindell's KGM, that's the Queen's Gallantry Medal. That was awarded to him posthumously after he died on the 21st of May 2004. Prior to being a policeman, he was in the police for 15 years before that, and prior to that he was a Lance Corporal in the Royal Engineers. So he certainly knew quite a bit about wearing a uniform for his country, that's for sure. Now this is really interesting. You don't often get this, and I can only assume it's because of the amount of rain we've had recently and the lack of traffic moving on the canal. But I'm paddling down here and I can see the bottom, which is quite remarkable. It's not very deep, probably about 3 feet here I would think. Enough for a narrowboat though. That's really good. Good morning. How you doing? So, the Tame Valley Canal is 8.5 miles from Salford Junction through to Tame Valley Junction, all the way down the other end. The problem for me is it raises up by 116 feet. That means it's got 13 locks and they're all 8-foot deep locks. So the way that as the water lifts up in each lock, it lifts up by 8 foot each. 13 of those brings us up to 106 feet higher than I am now. So I've got to do some carrying just around 2 locks first. Pretty weedy. It's nice that the lock keeper's cottage is still here. That's quite lovely actually. You can see the weed is all being constricted by the lock. That's why it's all sitting here, because obviously it's going that way downhill. So just for this section I've taken to walking it. As you can see, there's a lot of weed in the water. I was thinking it was just duckweed on the top, but it seems it was a bit worse than that. I'm hoping that's just down by the lock though. Well, that feels a bit better. On in. Brookvale Road Bridge. So let's look at why they built it. Right, so the BCN, the Birmingham Canal Navigations Company, they realised that plenty of stuff coming through Birmingham didn't need to go through the centre of Birmingham. It was really congested and it was a real pain. Now, lots of other companies were desperate to get on their patch as well, and not just that, the railways were coming of age. The Stockton to Darlington line kicked off in 1825, and from then on it started to expand really like a spider's web across the country, and the BCN realised that they needed to compete. They needed to speed things up a bit. Now, much as railways in 1839 weren't particularly efficient, there were a lot of stoppages, a lot of crashes actually, all sorts of problems. They were definitely taking lots and lots of business, so they had to do something about that. I always look at old maps, and I was looking before I came along at this one. This part here used to go off to an old wharf. The wharf's all gone now, but it's still got the spur that goes off to it, the arm that goes off to it. I like that. So in 1839 they designed the canal, and like I said before, it was technologically it was really quite advanced. When canals first started, James Brindley first started building them really in sort of the 1770s, 1780s, but by 1844 they'd overcome a lot of the problems. So for a start, they began as contour canals. They would basically follow a line around the hills and valleys, so they never really had to do much going up or going down. That made for a much easier canal to build, but it made for many more miles. And with a canal boat being towed by a horse doing around 2 miles an hour if they were lucky, that took a very long time on a contour canal. So the BCN wanted to build a straight canal. Good morning. Herrywell Road Bridge. So the BCN built this canal, like I say, pretty straight, very straight in places for miles. They could do that because lock technology had really come on. They could build a lock with an 8-foot drop on it, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but the weight of water inside that lock is absolutely colossal against the bottom gates, if you think of how much water's actually in there. So they built 13 locks, sort of in 3 flights, I think, really. There's a flight of 2 that I've just come past, and there's a flight of 4 in the middle, and then the rest are all pretty much on a flight on their own, taking us up to the 106 feet. They did a couple of other things as well. One of the problems with canals, seems like a minor problem, but I imagine it was a problem at the time for the people using them, was only having one tow path. That meant being towed by horses. The horses would come together at some point in different directions, and there was all sorts of etiquette about who passed on what side, who dropped their rope and that kind of thing. But with this canal, they built it with a tow path on both sides, so you could always be towed by a horse going one way or t'other. And basically you drive on the right on a canal. On inland waterways in this country, we always drive on the right. So I would be over here with my horse in front of me, and the other guy would be coming the other way with his horse in front of him, and never the twain shall meet. A great idea, made it much more efficient around locks certainly, and the complicated parts. Also, another thing they did was one of their main competitors was the Grand Union Canal Carrying Company. And the Grand Union Canal Carrying Company, they bought up lots of bits of canal leading up to the Midlands from London. So they started off with Regent's Canal. They then bought up the Grand Junction Canal and the Leicester line of the old Grand Union Canal and various other bits, and they widened them and they put wide beam boats on them, barges. Now the BCN, they didn't want them coming to Birmingham because they had Birmingham sewn up, a bit like a cartel really. Everything sort of ran through whatever the BCN said. So they made this canal a narrow canal, so the Grand Union Canal Carrying Company couldn't put their wide boats down here. That meant anything that came to Birmingham had to be transferred into narrower boats, some of which were owned by BCN, some were owned by other competitors, but it seriously slowed up the Grand Union Canal Carrying Company. Looks like I'm going to have the same weed problem pushing up against every lock. That's going to slow me up a bit. That's the first heron of the day. And the fourth lock coming up. Lock number 10. So I'm at lock 9 now. This is lock 9, that's lock 10, and that there used to go off the Perry Bar Wharf. Now Perry Bar Wharf was really famous in its day for building canal boats for the Birmingham Canal Navigations Company, but also canal boats for lots and lots of other people right across the country. So yeah, it was quite a big noise in its day, Perry Bar Wharf. Also, just over the back here we've got Perry Reservoir. Now originally when this canal was built, it was fed all from the other end, from the Tame Valley Junction at that end on the Walsall Canal, but that eventually ended up that wasn't really enough, so they built a big reservoir over the back of here, Perry Reservoir, just to feed the canal. Right, we carry on. Lock 8. So I've got about a mile before the next lot of locks, and that's 7 all in one go then. Really looking forward to that. Not so bad now I'm out of the weed. I've still got really clear water and fish. Good morning. And that there stretching out in front of me is the 7 locks of Perry Bar locks. Whoa, I'll be fit by the time I get to the top of there. Lock number 7. Morning. Lock number 6. Lock number 5. That's a very empty looking pound, that one. I've just had a look at that just to make sure that everything was correct on that lock there. and it's just where it's got leaky gates, sadly. So not a lot of water in that one. Good morning.
Morning, mate.
That's what it's supposed to look like. Lock number 3. Perry-Bar Lock Bridge. So that's lock 2. I've just seen a guy from Canals and Rivers, and he's just going through, opening up paddles to flush some water through, which is brilliant. That'll fill up that empty pound. There's a heron by the lock, right there, watching all that water swirling around. I wonder if he's waiting for a fish. I bet he knows something we don't. And this at last is lock number 1, with a lovely lock keeper's cottage as well. Hello, Mr. Heron. And there you go. Good morning. I'm just passing through a cut-in now, and that in front of me is Freeth Bridge. Very high bridge across the cut-in. It used to be a road bridge, but no longer. Apparently there's not the strength in it anymore to take vehicles, but it is still a footpath. I'm at the bottom of this cut-in. It's actually built out of, cut out of sandstone, and I've read that the sand that constituted the sandstone was laid down on the seabed 200 million years ago at this level. So that cut all the way down to that. It certainly is a long way up. Isn't that lovely?
That looks hard work.
Not really.
No.
Not when you've done loads of it. Good morning. Oh, this is really weedy. I'm having to stop every minute or so just to back paddle and get it off my skeg at the back. This is hard work. Hello, Puddy Tat. I've been over a couple of aqueducts. Actually, there's another one. We're very high up now. It's strange, isn't it? You come through a really deep cut-in and then suddenly you're really high up. It gives you an idea of exactly how high Birmingham really is. You know, this side of Birmingham really is built on a hill. Quite amazing. Now this island here in the middle, that's because there's a culvert underneath where the water can be pumped in, and if need be it can be pumped out again, just to regulate the height of the canal. But also what it meant was they could put boards across here and use it as a temporary bridge, because this was really quite a busy place at one time. I'm just coming up to, on the left here, just before this bridge in front of me, this is Gorse Farm Bridge. And on the left there used to be a basin and a wharf. And that was for Hampstead Colliery, which was just over there, Hampstead Colliery, the coal mine. Now, That may not ring any bells for you, Hampstead Colliery. However, in 1878, it operated between 1878 and 1965. And at one time, it reached 2,000 feet deep. Now that's a deep coal mine, and in fact, at the time it reached 2,000 feet, it was the deepest coal mine in the world. Good morning.
Good, mate.
How you doing?
Brilliant, that is.
So at 2,000 feet deep, Hampstead Colliery was the envy of the world, and consequently America hadn't started deep mining then, so they asked the engineers from Hampstead Colliery to go across to the US and teach them things about deep mining. Now you would think all you have to do is dig a hole really deep and get people to pull the coal out. There's a lot more to it than that. For a start, coal mines in general have a real problem with water. They fill up with water really quickly, so you've got to get rid of water. And pumping water up 2,000 feet in 1878 was really quite a difficult thing to do. It's pretty difficult now, in fact. Also, getting air, good fresh air, down to the guys that are working down there, that was also a real problem. So there was a lot of technological stuff needed to be done so that they could pull the coal out from 2,000 feet down. Off of the back of that, both governments signed an agreement. The US and the British government signed an agreement of sharing of information, technological information, and we still honour that agreement to a certain extent these days. And that was all off of the back of Hampstead Colliery, Birmingham. Do you know, it's really lovely, this. I really enjoy this. I've met so many people to talk to on my travels, today especially, but I always do. But yeah, I've met so many people on my travels that, you know, I'm having trouble remembering what I'm here for. Busy talking to people, and it's great. At last I've got through the weed, so that's not so bad, and it's all opened up. Yay! Well done, sir. Is that the first of the day? Well done. Good man. Chimney Bridge. There's something else about the BCN. The Birmingham Canal Navigations people, they never ever numbered their bridges. Everywhere else you go, canal bridges are numbered. And really what that means is you can find where you are really easy, because it's either a count down or a count up to the next junction. Well, BCN didn't do that. They just gave them the names. They gave them names of roads and names of farms and things like that. And the story goes that the reason for that was because unless you were a local, you didn't know where you were. So boaters from other areas coming in, bringing stuff in to Birmingham, invariably had trouble finding out where they were. An awful lot of boaters in them days couldn't read and write. Consequently, they couldn't read the names on the bridges, and I guess could possibly get lost. You know, in those days there were 160 miles of canals around Birmingham, lots of junctions, lots of locks. It would be very easy to miss the wharf you were supposed to be going to. There's still 100 miles of it, well worth a paddle, I think. Now this here, Brickfield's turnover. Now a turnover bridge is a really clever thing actually on canals. What it means is the horse can change sides on the canal, one towpath to the other, without unhooking it. So imagine there's a horse on coming up there, he comes up there, over this bridge, back down that one and round this way, and his rope still stays free. And obviously you can do the same thing that way. You can go up there, round here, down that one, and then back that way. Turnover bridges, very clever way to get around having to unhook your horse just to change sides. So this is the M5 link road. If you've ever gone onto the M5 from the M6, this is the beginning of that junction triangle. So I'm now coming into the triangle between the M6 and the M5. Loads of herons I've seen today. There goes another one. Isn't that wonderful? So this is Rush Hall Junction, the Rush Hall Canal. Goes up to Cats Hill Junction, which is about 8 miles up. I think there's 9 locks going that way as well. That came down to join onto here. Again, just after it opened, it was a link between Cats Hill and here. Oh, now I love that. I realise it's been painted over, but if you look at this, you can see where the towpath used to come around here, and all the horses used to come around here. And on this corner, all of their ropes used to catch on that corner and that corner, pulling 70-ton barges full of coal, and it soared all of those slots in. I wonder if the guy with the can of paint knew that. And there seems to be 2 very old swan's eggs there. Obviously didn't hatch for some reason. I wonder why. But they've been there quite a long time. They're certainly not this year, probably not last year. Wow, didn't expect to see that. So I've got the M6 on my right now. It never ceases to amaze me when you're on a motorway and you're cruising along, going to work, coming home, whatever it is. You don't know any of this is here, do you? It's amazing. There's a huge triangle of countryside here, just to the north of Birmingham city centre. Lovely. There used to be an old stop lock there. The reason for that is because of this aqueduct. When they built it, it meant that they could block everything back there, the water. There'll be another one on the other side as well. If ever they need to do any maintenance, they can close those gates and drain it off. So I'm just coming up to a railway bridge here, where the canal goes over the top of a railway. There's a couple of really fascinating things about this. For a start, it's one of the very few places you'll find where a canal crosses over the top of a railway and the railway is older than the canal. So, because obviously normally the canals were built before the railways. Now this railway is quite special. It used to be, it now forms part of the West Coast Main Line from Birmingham all the way up to Manchester. But at one time it was the Grand Junction Railway, and when it opened in 1837, this stretch of it was the very first long distance steam hauled railway in the world. It terminated at Curzon Street in the middle of Birmingham and went all the way up to Manchester. And interestingly, Curzon Street is where HS2, High Speed 2, is going to eventually terminate in Birmingham. And it was said in the Times when it opened, they said it was such an amazing achievement because it would mean that someone could catch the train from Manchester and be in London 9 hours later. I think nowadays it's about 2¼ hours. But at the time I think everything was sort of about 25 miles an hour. And it was all pretty amazing at the time. Anyway, there you go, we're very high up above it. And this is as far as I go. Now down there, about a mile down there, is Walsall Canal on Tame Junction, Tame Canal Junction. I've just come about 8 miles that way from Spaghetti Junction at Salford and up 13 locks and 106 feet. Amazing. So what an amazing paddle. Another amazing paddle. Definitely worth getting up really early this morning for. Packing all my stuff and carrying it to the train, carrying it off of the train, carrying it to the canal, getting changed at the side of the canal and paddling all the way here. Up 13 locks, 106 feet. But all of that history, that's just amazing, really amazing. And one of the latest canals that was ever built in this country. Love it, really love it. Anyway, down there, that's where I'm getting my train. So I'll get all packed up, get changed and walk down there. Anyway, like, subscribe, stay tuned and happy paddling.